an economic of dignity, a meritocracy through competence. I hope to justify a conditional basic income on human rights through dignity. So here's the outline. Of course, I talk about capitalism and how I would understand capitalism with the free market, and I will present my libertarianism, libertarian conception of the free market, but then I will also draw out what's important in libertarianism through work, achievement, and the alienation by the capitalist that's been pointed out by Karl Marx. And lastly, I will present my Kantianism, how respect and self-respect, and in the end, dignity explains all these. So capitalism, in a capitalistic society, we trade, and of course, at the background, there is a division of labor. Different citizens specialize in doing different things, so it will increase efficiency, right? And in before, maybe some would be doing agriculture of a certain crop, and some would be rearing animals, and then there are exchange of goods through barter. But later on, there is a common currency using money, and with more money, you would have better purchase power. So you want to make more money, and so you can buy more things. So that's roughly what capitalism enables through trade. And of course, one important feature of capitalism is competition, and that's what the free market is about. It's the price is determined through demand and supply mechanism. If you're good, holding the supply fixed, the good of similar quality, holding the supply fixed, and if the demand is higher, then you can set a price at a higher value. So people will still pay for that. And of course, for the free market to work, we need transparency of information, because if you're doing well, people need to know. And if you're not doing well, there are ways to know that your product is defective. And that's how, through interacting with consumers on a free market, and given the goal of profit maximization, capitalists will decide about the production, how and what to produce, and the amount. And of course, they would need to do quality control, because the consumers are sensitive to the quality of your good, whether they are willing to buy from you, whether you have a market share. So that's capitalism in a nutshell. So free market, because the libertarian, there's a strong inclination against market interference. So here's how I understand that in terms of an entitlement, whether someone is entitled to use certain good. First of all, we have to focus on acquisition, whether acquiring something is moral, whether someone do have the moral right over a certain good, certain property, whether someone possessed those goods morally, and this relates to distributive justice. But at first, it's not yet distribution, it's acquisition. It's about whether someone earned something deservingly. So if someone did, then he's entitled to use those goods. And once that person acquired those goods morally, then we can talk about ownership transfer. How is it moral? It's a very simple understanding that's a liberal understanding about free interaction. Well, you have to know what you're doing and you agree to do that thing. And with regard to ownership transfer, you have to know what you're transferring the ownership over and you agree to that. So that's roughly how the morality of acquisition and ownership transfer is. But one thing that's very important is that about acquisition, I don't agree with John Locke that we, especially with regard to land, that we always have to leave enough share for others, because to think about a Realpolitik, the realism, the political realism over land, it's a power struggle. Well, before the United Nations was established during World War II, we were still at a time during which land, geography, jurisdiction depends on military strength, conquest, and that kind of realism. I think we should not ignore that, and how we come to be the way we are today. So land, acquisition, power, it's it's fair game in a way that if through and through libertarianism is about entitlement, and that kind of acquisition, I don't see anything wrong about acquiring a certain land that's on your own competence, except after certain contractual obligation is formed, especially through the United Nations or in a society in which we have the civility to observe the law, right? So given that at the background, we can talk about justice without infringing others' human rights on a fair competition. On a free market, justice is just whatever you get through fair competition. And in terms of employment, it would be good that one is rewarded on competence, which is indicated by the performance, how well you do, right? So that's what I think, how I start thinking about distributive justice. And of course, we have to think about quality of opportunity and where we start and luck. But these things I will set it aside for the moment. So Marxism comes in here through alienation. Well, roughly put, alienation, we can think about it in the following way. So a citizen through his work, labor, produced some good. So allegedly, he has moral ownership over the good because that's what he produced. And the property right, he has the property right over those good. But then legally, even if morally it belongs to the person, especially when it is one's labor empowered by some means of production, then he has to enter into a contract, and there are legal obligations through the contract that the capitalist will own part of the produce, and that's how one's labor is owned, right? And that's what's wrong about alienation. That's the immorality of alienation. And to think about what's behind the Marxist idea, I will focus on achievement and the intrinsicality of achievement. How, suppose there's the same good, let's say a same steak that you've cooked, given the same quality, well, the taste is the same, everything is the same, except that one is what you made yourself, and another is made by someone else. So your own production, whatever you produce yourself, supposedly that has a higher value, and that value is beyond, that's the use value, is beyond how much what you can sell. It's beyond how much you enjoy it. And that's the intrinsicality of achievement. It's because it's your own good. It's your own production. It's your own achievement. And if we understand that kind of intrinsic value through work, then we will see the problem with alienation. But first, work, achievement, outcome. The outcome is the good, the product. And through your achievement, some work is done. And that added work, I hope to measure it in terms of labor value. And it's, again, it's not directly from Karl Marx, but I hope to understand this against the backdrop of market value and to understand fair trade thus. So lastly, Kantianism. Well, exploitation, that's another Marxist notion, but I think when Kant talks about treating others as mere means, there's a way in which the Kantian notion and the Marxist notion relate. So respecting someone, to act on respect for someone, to operationalize and act on respects would simply be an intention matching. So if I respected my supervisor, then whatever he intended that I do, or and only that he intended that I do, I would do that. So my intention will match what he intends that I intend. So that's an intention matching, and that's how I understand respect. And self-respect as a special case would be when you intend all and only what you intend that you intend. It sounds strange that there are cases in which you don't intend what you intend that you intend, or you intend something that you intend you don't intend. But there are cases in which it's like that. So economic pressure, right? Well, not everyone wants to be a street sweeper, I think. But given their upbringing, skill set, and the economic pressure to make a living, they'll be doing something that they don't really want to do. So, and one way to understand exploitation by the capitalist is that. So I hope to understand economic pressure through dignity and autonomy. So supposedly, we don't have to do the kind of self-legislation that's on a maxim if we only think about self-determination of value. On today's society, sometimes what's valuable, what we value, what we go for are market-driven. We have to add value to ourselves in order to be employable on the job market, right? To be competitive on a job market. And that kind of value determination, maybe it's not exactly the kind of autonomy that we want. Oh, I don't think it is, because let's say on our dignity that we have our life goal, there are things we want to do in our life, but we might not have the opportunity simply because that there are things that we want that are, well, if we take in the market, our employability, those things are not valuable for biological sustenance to have food and shelter, right? So, given that a dignity theory of human rights, it's on dignity that we should have guaranteed employment. If we want to work, we should be able to work. We should be entitled to work and earn our keep without having to forgo our life goal, because this takes away the kind of economic coercion that forces someone to do what they don't want to do, which on a Marxist notion of alienation, and even on Kantianism, it's an infringement of human rights. So here's a summary. I talk about capitalism and an understanding of the free market on a libertarian ground, and a Marxist notion of work and in relation to alienation, and how this goes back to Immanuel Kant.